Welcome to the module, Making Every Student Count, Individual Accountability and Cooperative Learning. We value your time and appreciate your active participation during this module. Here are a few suggested learning norms to make the most of your time. If possible, work in an environment with as few distractions as possible so you can engage and reflect. Take notes and jot down ideas and questions as needed. Lastly, use this time wisely to ensure your professional learning with university instructors is productive. The agenda for this module is defining the problem, core principles of accountability, individual accountability strategies. There's a video, accountability in action, application and practice, and reflection and takeaways. The learning objectives for this module are: by the end of this module, participants will be able to explain why individual accountability is essential for effective cooperative learning, identify the core principles that support individual student accountability in your teaching, apply at least 3 strategies to ensure individual student accountability in your teaching, design cooperative learning tasks that include built-in accountability structures, and assess individual student contributions and learning within group settings. Let's first start with an essential question. How can we ensure that every student is individually accountable for their learning during cooperative group work? Keep this in the forefront of your mind as we go through the content in this module. Here is the question to keep in mind as we move through this module in our exploration of individual accountability. How could implementing individual accountability strategies transform the learning experience for your students? We will return to this question at the end of the module. The description on the left is probably familiar to many people. You have either experienced it as an instructor or as a student in your own classroom experiences. With traditional group work practices, one student, usually the most motivated or highest achieving, does most of the work because they want a good grade or they don't trust others. Some students contribute minimally. Maybe they are there, participate a little, but aren't fully invested and do the minimum. Often one or more students completely disengage, knowing they will likely get credit for the group's work without actually contributing. But all 4 students often receive the same grade. The results are not what we look for in effective instruction. The learning is unequal resentment and frustration build as the harder worker feels used and the others feel either guilty or entitled. Students are taught that it's okay to have limited or no engagement in their learning. And most importantly, opportunities for learning are missed. This is what happens when you have a group work without individual accountability. This is preventable, and our module today will explore the strategies and tools we can utilize to make sure that we get different results when students learn together. Individual accountability means each student is responsible for 3 things: their own learning, not just the group's final project; their own contribution, they can't coast on others' work; and demonstrating their own understanding, they must be able to show what they learned. Students can work together, but they must each learn and demonstrate mastery individually. The key test is if you pull any student aside after group work and ask them to explain what the group learned or complete a similar task alone, could they do it? Ask these 3 questions. Can each student explain the group's work? Can each student complete similar tasks independently? Does each student contribute meaningfully? If the answer to any of those is no, then you don't have true individual accountability. It is helpful to think about two different perspectives when evaluating the importance of individual accountability: the instructors and the students. For students, it ensures all students actually learn the content, not just a few. It ensures students can't just ride along on others' work. It builds all students' confidence and competence and develops genuine collaboration skills. Students learning to work together and pull their own weight. It also prepares students for college and career, where group projects all require individual contributions. For teachers, the data that you are able to collect on students' learning is greatly improved because it includes all students, not just a group output. This allows you to identify which individual students needs additional support and create more equitable learning experiences. Behavior issues are reduced because it makes it more difficult for students to be disengaged with the work and you maximize your instructional time. In summary, individual accountability transforms cooperative and collaborative learning experiences into a powerful teaching tool that leads to more impactful learning. Now, we will examine the principles that make this happen. Before we dive into specific strategies, it's important to understand the foundation, the 5 core principles of effective cooperative learning as developed by Johnson & Johnson, the leading researchers in this field. Think of these as 5 pillars that support a building. Remove one and the entire structure is weakened. Principle 1. Positive interdependence means that students need each other to succeed. The task assigned should be so structured that they are unable to complete it alone. They need their group mates to complete the task successfully. Principle 2. Face-to-face interaction. Students work closely together, not just dividing tasks and working separately. They must be talking, explaining, and helping each other understand the concepts or skills they are learning. Principle 3. Individual accountability. This core principle will be our focus in this module. Each student's learning is assessed individually. Principle 4. Social skills. Students don't automatically know how to collaborate well. We must teach and practice skills like active listening, constructive feedback, and conflict resolution. Principle 5. Group processing. Groups reflect on how well they are working together and set goals for improvement. We are focusing on Principle 3, but it is important to remember that cooperative learning is most effective when all 5 principles are in place. Individual accountability in cooperative learning means 2 things. Each student is held responsible for doing their share of work, and each student is held responsible for learning the material. There are several ways to create this individual accountability. In a cooperative learning structure, the group should produce something. However, you must also be able to assess what each individual in the group learned. When you are questioning students during cooperative activities, randomly calling on students to explain the group's work can help you determine if one student is not accountable to the learning. If any one student can't explain what the group is working on or the focus of their learning, they are not individually accountable to that learning. Individual products must be required in addition to the group product. For example, if the group is tasked with creating an infographic, each student could also write an individual reflection as part of the project. As the instructor conducts formative assessment observations, they can note individual student contributions to the project. Additionally, in more formal assessments, individuals should be assessed, not the group. The key question you must ask yourself as you plan a cooperative learning activity is whether you could assess one specific student's learning or if you will only be able to assess the learning of the group as a whole the way you have designed the task. If the answer is the group only, you don't have individual accountability built into the task. Self-assessment and reflection on our current practice is essential in growing as an educator. Let's look at these 5 statements. Mentally check off any that apply to your current practice. Self-assessment. How often do you assign group grades where all members get the same score? Allow students to divide tasks and work separately. Struggle to identify which students contributed versus coasted. Skip individual assessment after group work. And feel frustrated when some students don't participate. If you mentally checked 2 or more boxes, this is the module for you. These strategies will help transform how you use cooperative learning. Which box or statement resonates most with your experience? What is your biggest frustration with cooperative learning or group work? In the next section of this module, we will explore specific strategies that will help you address those frustrations. These are the 8 techniques we will focus on to increase individual accountability in cooperative learning tasks. Some focus on assessment, some on the structure of the work itself. Others rely on the observation and documentation strategies of instructors, and others require peer and self-monitoring by group members. The goal is never to use all 8 strategies in one cooperative learning task. The goal is to build a toolkit of strategies you can use when planning a cooperative learning task, choosing the tool that best fits the content and learning goals. To make your learning meaningful, it may be helpful to identify 2 to 3 specific strategies you will commit to trying in the next couple of weeks in your classroom. Hold yourself accountable to your learning. Strategy 1 is simple but incredibly effective. Individual quizzes after group work. Students work in groups on a problem-solving task, discussion, or learning activity. They collaborate, help each other, and share ideas. Groups complete their work together. After the group work, each student takes an individual quiz or completes an exit ticket on the material they worked on. The example provided comes from a math classroom. Groups work together to solve 5 complex math problems. They discuss strategies and check each other's work. Then, each student individually solves 2 similar problems on a quiz or exit ticket task. This assessment will demonstrate if individual students can apply what they learned in the group setting. This holds students accountable during the group work portion of the task, as they know they will have to perform a similar task independently after. It improves the quality of the discussion during the group work, as students want to make sure they understand because they will have to solve a similar problem on their own. During or after group work, the instructor randomly selects one student from each group to report out or explain the group's thinking. Students should not know in advance who will be called. The selected student must explain the group's thinking, answer questions, justify decisions, not just read from notes. You can use equity or pick-me sticks with each student's name to ensure equitable distribution of students who must answer. There are also spinners and a free digital randomizer app that can be used for the same purpose. This strategy is simple but effective because all students must be ready to explain the group's work. It also creates accountability during the work itself, as students must stay engaged throughout in case they are the student selected to represent the group. This ensures all students are engaged and understanding the group work. This strategy will prevent one dominant student from taking over. Strategy number 3 is to create individual accountability by requiring both individual and group products. Groups create a collaborative product, but each individual student also creates their own product that demonstrates their individual learning. There are several examples on the screen. If the group product is a power on ecosystems, then each student may write a one-page reflection on what they learned as part of the group project. Individual research notes that are used to create a group presentation is another way to ensure individual accountability. Lab reports are common group products. These can easily be tweaked by requiring each student to answer analysis questions individually that demonstrates their own understanding of the concepts they study. Finally, even in math, this is possible. When students work together to solve a problem, each student must be required to write an explanation of the solution process or apply that process to a novel problem. Why does this work? You are assessing both collaboration and individual learning. The group product shows they can work together. The individual product shows what each student actually understands. Students can't hide behind the group's work because they must produce something individually. And you get clear evidence of each student's understanding, not just the group's collective output. It is important to design the individual product as something that can only be done if the student engaged in the group work. For example, write about how your thinking changed based on your group discussion, or explain one thing you learned from a group mate. This strategy works well across all grade levels and content areas. Even kindergartners can draw individual pictures after group discussions. Structure roles with rotating responsibilities requires instructors to provide structured organization rather than letting groups self-organize. When groups are allowed to structure themselves, the assertive students often take over. When the instructor assigns roles, it ensures equity and accountability. Common roles include a facilitator who keeps the group on task and makes sure all voices are equally included. Recorders are responsible for documenting the group's ideas and decisions. Reporters share the group's work with the whole class. Materials managers are the group members who gather and organize supplies for the work. The timekeeper monitors the time and ensures the group is on pace to complete tasks in the time allotted. The checker is responsible for making sure everyone is on the same page and understands their tasks before the group moves forward. It is important to rotate these roles regularly so that the same student isn't always the recorder or facilitator. Rotating every new task or once a week is a great way to make sure all students experience all roles. Each role must be essential to the task to create buy-in. You can make sure to hold each role accountable as you monitor tasks. When you circulate and check in with groups, ask the timekeeper, how much time do we have left? Or the checker, has everyone in your group mastered this concept? Observe and document role performance, taking note of how well students fulfill their roles. This can be part of their individual grade for the project. This works because everyone has a job, so no one is able to completely disengage. Students are also encouraged to develop different skills through the different roles. Strategy number 5 is simple but very effective. Each student in the group is assigned a different colored marker, pen, or pencil. All contributions to the group product must be made in that student's assigned color. Now you can instantly see who contributed what. There is visual accountability. There are many examples of how you could create a color-coded contributions task. Group poster projects are a simple way to achieve this. Each student is assigned an individual part of the poster project as seen on the slide. Blue is assigned to write about causes, red writes about effects, green adds a diagram, and purple authors the conclusion. This is also applicable to math tasks. If each student solves one step of a complex problem in their assigned color, you can see individual contributions. Brainstorming is another way to color code accountability. Each student contributes their ideas in a different color. This strategy works well as you are given a visual representation of each individual's contributions to the task. It encourages equal participation and creates natural equity. It's hard for one student to dominate when the group knows the final product should have balanced colors. While you are observing, you can intervene if you see one color dominating. I'm noticing a lot of blue here. Red and green students, what are you adding? After each group session, students complete an individual reflection. These can be written for older students, verbal for younger students, or digital using Google Forms or similar tools. The slide offers a few examples of prompts that are great for reflection. Instructors use these reflection logs to identify any issues students encountered while working on the group project. They can inform individual grades or feedback. Patterns and logs can be shared with the class anonymously. I noticed many people said they struggle with listening to all ideas. Let's practice that skill. This strategy promotes metacognition. Students think about their own learning and collaboration. It also creates self-accountability. This is a window into group dynamics that you may not see from observation alone. This strategy is most effective when it is part of a regular routine, not a one-time thing. Students get better at honest reflection with practice. Strategy 7 is a specific cooperative learning structure called a jigsaw. This is a very effective method for creating individual accountability. Students form a home group of 4 to 5 students. Each student in the group is assigned a different topic or subtopic. For example, if you are teaching the causes of World War I, student A is assigned militarism. Student B gets alliances. Student C gets imperialism. And student D gets nationalism. Then students leave their home groups and form expert groups. All the militarism students meet together. All the alliances students meet together, etc. In expert groups, students study their topic deeply, discuss it, create teaching materials, and become an expert on that topic. Next, students return to their home groups. Now, each student is an expert on one topic. Student A teaches the home group about militarism. Student B teaches about alliances, and so forth. Each expert is responsible for making sure their group mates understand their topic. Finally, every student is given a task that requires them to understand all topics. That is building accountability. Each student must become an expert because their expert group holds them accountable. Each student must teach effectively because their home group needs them. And each student must learn from all the experts because the individual assessment covers all topics. The jigsaw strategy is a very powerful because creates true positive interdependence. The expert groups need all members to contribute to building expertise. The home groups need each expert to teach well. It ensures every student in actively participating. There are no passive roles. It is a very flexible strategy and can be used in any subject and at any grade level. Finally, it develops both learning and teaching skills. They aren't just receiving information, they are processing it deeply enough to teach others. We know that is one of the deepest forms of learning. We have learned about 7 different strategies that can be used to create individual accountability in cooperative learning tasks. We are going to spend a few minutes observing this in action. You will watch a short video clip of a cooperative learning task in a real classroom. As you watch, be an active observer. Look for the accountability strategies you observe, how the teacher has structured the group work to ensure accountability, how engaged individual students are in the learning, and any evidence of individual learning you observe. Take notes on your observations. Now that you have viewed the video, reflect on the following question. What evidence did you notice of individual accountability in the cooperative task, and what could you suggest to create more individual accountability in the task observed? Did you notice that each student contributed to the poster using Post-it notes? Did you also notice that the teacher called on an individual from each team to share the sentence they recorded on their sentence strip? There were also ways the teacher could have increased the individual accountability in this task. For example, we don't see how the lesson ended. Perhaps each student could write an individual reflection about what they had learned about collaborative discussions. The teacher could also have used the color-coded contribution strategy to make sure each student's Post-it note and contributions could be identified on the posters. The key takeaway is that there are numerous strategies that can be used to increase individual accountability. With every new strategy we try in our classrooms, there will be challenges. Here are some common challenges for increasing individual accountability in cooperative learning tasks with some possible solutions. If students are uncomfortable with the individual responsibilities, explain that this is a parallel to real life. A basketball player doesn't get credit just because the team won. They are evaluated on their own performance as well. This is preparation for the future. A very assertive or dominant student may still try to dominate despite your accountability structures. This requires very structured roles with strict rotations. You can limit speaking time per person by using a simple timer. You can also require written contributions before verbal discussion so quieter students have a chance to think before contributing. Finally, we know that assessment and grading can feel overwhelming, especially when you need to grade a group project and each student's individual contribution. But remember that assessments can be simple. You can get great information from a quick exit ticket or a 2 to 3 question assignment. Use observation checklists as you are walking around during group work to note individual students' understanding. You don't always have to provide detailed feedback. Your goal is simply to collect data on who understands and who does not. We have covered a lot of content, so let's review. Let's synthesize what we have learned from this module into 5 key takeaways. Individual accountability ensures all students learn. Don't settle for group products alone. Yes, collaboration is valuable, but you must also assess individual learning. Accountability must be built into your task design, not added as an afterthought. Plan for accountability from the start, as it will shape how you structure the entire activity. Use multiple strategies for multiple data points. Don't rely on just one type of accountability. Combine strategies so you can triangulate your evidence of individual learning. Start simple. Build complexity over time. Master 2 to 3 strategies before adding sophisticated strategies like jigsaw or complex role structures. Finally, the most important takeaway is that accountability creates equity in learning. It isn't a punishment. We are ensuring all students have the opportunity to contribute and learn, regardless of their personality, background, prior achievement level. The bottom line is that when every student is accountable, every student learns. We hope you enjoyed this module on strategies for individual student accountability and cooperative learning structure. Please complete the Check for Understanding (CFU) and the survey included in the Google Classroom. Thank you, and we look forward to providing continued support for your professional growth at University Instructors.